Wellsmore to do the acknowledgement, please.
Well, hello everyone.
Yeah.
Look, I found that I need to have an attitude to look, to listen, to learn, and to love Indigenous people. That was a request from the Catholic bishops. I'll just say it again: to look, to listen, to learn, and to love. So now, an acknowledgement that came from the Sisters of Mercy. We respectfully remember the first people that live in our own respective areas, and in honouring the memory of the traditional custodians, we acknowledge with sorrow the immeasurable suffering caused to them and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people by European colonisation. We recognise with shame that such suffering still endures to the present generation. We pray today with faith and hope for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and ourselves, that God's mercy and justice will walk in our lives, our communities, and in the heart of our nation. So let's be people of peace. And I'm going to vote yes in the referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. Okay, look, I'm chairing today. Welcome to everybody. Craig, hope you're well, and Jill and others for this meeting. Could I just ask that we use the put your hands up if you want to ask a question or something, and for this during the meeting today. Now I'd ask Craig Walters, who's going to who's sent out a reflection, which I sent out yesterday or day before, and so for Craig, it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claude. I'm going to do reflection today, and it's entitled, "What Might Each of Us Be Doing Now to Turn Back the Future Streams of War?" It's by Alistair McIntosh, who's an honorary research fellow of the University of Glasgow. He's also a Quaker. His books include Soil and Soul, People versus Corporate Power, Spiritual Activism, and most recently, Riders on the Storm. And I commend his books to you. That's the most recent one, I think. He wrote this, I think, in the same week that Russia invaded Ukraine. So I've got at the top there that it was originally broadcast in 2002. That's wrong. It's February 2022. Actually, 25th of February 2022, the day after Russia invaded Ukraine. So maybe if I start, if people, I might read a paragraph, and if people can follow that, that'd be great. So over the recent months, I've been reading Leo Tolstoy's epic novel about Napoleon's invasion of Russia, War and Peace. It runs to over 1,300 pages. My copy of the paperback was so thick and heavy that I had to borrow my wife's hairdryer to melt the glue that bound it together and separate it into 4 parts. Only then could I render the experience one more of reading than of weightlifting. But as Russia's troops closed in upon Ukraine this week, on the 24th of February 2022, a different heaviness beset me. Does someone want to read the next paragraph or a couple of paragraphs?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, Marita.
In researching the novel, Tolstoy had read French and Russian histories of the events more than half a century previous. That provided the background to his book. He interviewed survivors and visited the battlefields. It left him with a powerful sense that war cannot just be blamed on one event or on one person. It's a consequence of what has gone before.
Someone else want to take it up?
There are two sides to life for every individual, he said. A personal life in which one's freedom exists in proportion to the abstract nature of one's interests, and an elemental life within the swarm of humanity. This other side of life is built up of perhaps billions of prior events. I thought so much of these in the past few days. What can you or I do about the shocking invasion of Ukraine?
There used to be a saying, "What did you do in the war, Daddy?" Tolstoy's sense of those billions of prior events that feed into the elemental swarm invites deeper questions of us. What did you do before the war?
What might each one of us be doing now to turn back future streams of war? I have no clincher of an answer. I just have humming through my head a Sydney Carter hymn I heard at Iona Abbey. Friends may know it. It's about how we treat our neighbours and the billions of acts of kindness and respect that set the seeds of peace. When I needed a neighbour, were you there? Were you there? When I needed a neighbour, were you there? And the creed and the colour and the name won't matter. Were you there? Were you there? When I needed a neighbour, were you there?
So I'd like to invite comments on the reflection. Any thoughts you'd like to give?
I've just seen on TV, I think on Facebook, it actually in recent times, but it's true. I think that that what happened with the Holocaust and the racism, in Germany and so on, but also I presume in other places, it didn't start with the ovens. It didn't start with those people being sent to concentration camps. It started out with words, ugly words of that were dismissive, words that were separating people from others, highlighting their differences and that sort of stuff. And it started there, and it goes on and becomes more and more intense and more acute until we end up with what's happened with the Holocaust. And I think these sorts of things happen also with war. We're doing that, I think, with China at the present moment. We're building up an image of China as being a nasty, aggressive country, and it's these sorts of things that lead, as far as I can tell, to the conflicts that ensue.
Thanks, Claude. Peter.
Well, so much depends on the kind of exposure we have according to whatever news sources we have access to. I've been reading some stuff from Caitlin Johnston recently, and there was within that a reference to the 15 reasons why journalists promote propaganda. And the general sense of it is that it's very hard to find publications of truth, certainly in the mainstream media. And quite frankly, when you read the stuff from the other sources, it tends to be quite overwhelming. So, it's you quietly go back and you do something small that you can do, and you try and take on board something of the bigger picture, which is, as I say, pretty overwhelming. Anyway.
Thanks, Peter.
it may or may not be relevant, but I heard a brief thing on the ABC that goes to what Peter was just talking about today, in that the defence for the costs of the Ben Robert Smith case has said that he thought that the two journalists that had done, Nick McKenzie and Chris Masters, were not credible journalists. And I thought, if anyone's credible journalists, those two were. But that was just my thought. So it goes a bit to what Peter was just saying.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Marita. I heard that too at lunchtime. Yeah, incredible.
I think those words, what did you do before the war, Daddy, Siri, hit home a bit.
Frank, speak into the microphone.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
A bit better, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for it.
Like we can read and keep up to date with the Zooms, the articles like Gareth Evans's and Clinton Fernandez this week, and that's a big task. But we still need to be able to, as Craig's got in his book, without, doesn't matter what creed people have, what ideology they have, or we still need to be able to kind of relate to them and not, get offside with them if we can avoid it. So without creed, name, or colour. So I thought that was a very good little piece for me, because we can easily walk in. It was the First World War. I've said, I don't want to reiterate too much, but it wasn't the public or the press or the Parliament that wanted war. It was sort of taken out of people's hands by Churchill, and Grey, and Asquith, and they weren't especially to blame, but nevertheless they still were. Like, it could have been resisted.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Frank. Anyone else?
Yes, me.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it begins very early. I think our society is all too quick to react to all sorts of situations, and we're told to fight back. And I think we need to examine living non-violently, right from, as parents and throughout school, so that we begin to live the life that Jesus tried to model for us. It's not about dogmas and all that kind of thing. It's about living and following. And I think our society is all too quickly to think we've got to fight back. And so here we are, building up the armaments industry, building up our own armaments, and we're just not focusing on the importance of a totally different way of living.
Yeah, thanks, Gil. So you're sort of saying, teach your children well, as the song says, and let's get that culture of peace going to every generation of children.
And it begins with us as well, as searching our own hearts as to how we respond to things.
It's just not it's not all the global picture of peace, is it? It's the interpersonal relationships and one-to-one relationships that have to be changed too.
It's so easy to point fingers and say them, they have to do this or they have to do that, whether it's the government or the church or whomever. It's also I think.
Thanks, Gil. Any further, Claude?
Yeah, look, I think this probably follows on with what's just been said, but you have this question: how do we learn to be peacemakers and create a culture of peace? It's one of those questions that you have on the bottom of the page here, and
Yep.
And I think it comes back, and Jill's I think touched on it. Is that it begins with us, and Gandhi said the same thing. It always begins with us, and in our interpersonal relationships. And I really think that, in recent times, I've been saying it quite often, is the whole question of we need to have, everyday connections with people. What Hugh Mackay also says, a revolution of kindness, and it's about how we connect with strangers and people all the time. And Pope Francis talks about a revolution of tenderness. And I think those sorts of things happen in our everyday relationship, and we don't do that, and whether it's the bus driver or whether it's the shop assistant or anyone else, it goes back to all those people who are complete strangers, and we can do that. We can do that. We can be kind even when people are not kind to us. And I think that's how it begins. We create that culture of peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, Claude. Alistair goes on to say that he actually frames that question a little bit differently. He said, how do we apply our peace testimony? And I didn't know what that was, but it's a Quaker thing. And what it is a Quaker peace testimony is trying to live in the virtue of that life and power that takes away the occasions of all war. And they speak about patterns and examples. And what they say is a pattern is a template for a theory of change, while examples are living demonstrations, a witness. So I think the witness is a very, very important thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Witnessing, showing people how to treat others.
There used to be a sign when you got a bus into the city. When I was living at Drummoyne, I get a bus. There used to be a sign on the side of a building, a really big, and it was painted on, and it says, "If you're not paranoid, you are naive." And I think it's about questioning all the time what we hear and what we see from people in power, because they're the ones who will lead us to, take us. You're laughing, Peter. Did you write it? Did you? But anyway, but I just think it's as we need to keep questioning the what's happening in our media regarding China and other countries and so on. We've done we did it with Saddam Hussein, we did it Iraq, and we did it with Afghanistan and so on. And they lead to war and so on. Yeah.
Thanks, Claude. Anyone else?
Can I speak, Craig?
Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Hi. Look, while everyone's talking, one of the things that I think that is unarming is working on not being fearful of others. I think the approach, I've seen it myself in, in like The Stranger, when you actually approach people and I've just had a recent experience, and Peter was the catalyst. He doesn't realize this, but I've been going to a coffee shop for years and I did not ask them their name. And just recently Peter came along and he asked them their names. They're from Bangladesh, and you can't, my thinking is that the connection elevated by just that simple act of sharing names. you became not just the other, you became your names. And so they now call me Maggie, and I call them Yard and Hassan. You know, it's sort of, it's sort of broken down a barrier that I didn't even consider was there, because I was very friendly with them, but I just went to another level. That's all. And Peter, my old mate Peter, was the catalyst. Otherwise, I would have still been probably saying, "Hey, you know, coffee." Sorry, that's my sharing.
That's
Heavens
lovely,
above,
Maggie.
what went wrong? I
That's
must have done.
beautiful. Thank you.
I think those personal examples are really, really helpful, because next time I'm in that kind of situation, I'll probably think to myself, well, I'd love to think I'd think to myself, oh, I wonder what their names are. I should ask.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, that's a beautiful one.
and remembering their names.
Yes.
That's the next job.
Peter.
Yeah. There was a program on the ABC yesterday around lunchtime, and they brought together some artists from different countries, from Bangladesh, just following on Maggie, from Bangladesh, Indonesia, some Pacific countries, and so on. They're all artists. They were here in Australia for some program, and they're all going back. One of them said, I was just amazed at the assumed superiority that they felt, that they even touched. So deep and so strong. It's a long program, but this Indonesian artist said at one meeting, there was conversation, and somebody said at the meeting, I hope someone takes the minutes. And this person said, minutes? What are you talking about? Don't you know what minutes are? And the chair, whoever it is, explained, oh, minutes are, you take down notes of what happened. But in my country, she was saying, we use the word notes. Take notes, not take minutes. Minutes was such a foreign word to her. There was not the sensitivity from the one leading the meeting to understand that. And when Indonesian woman said, in our country, we said we take notes and not minutes, and this person said, we take minutes. That's how it is. And so the superiority that was expressed was very harming. Now, I've talked about this before, that we talk about what we can do and so on, but we don't know to what extent our behavior intensifies whatever hurt there is. And sometimes it can be done very accidentally, unconsciously. There is such a thing called unconscious racism. Most people in Australia would say they're not racist. And at the surface level, in terms of talking to people, etc., they may not be racist. There are the way people have been brought up. Now, it doesn't matter, they don't have to be Australians. Racism is a universal phenomenon. Of racists in Pakistan, who look down on other communities and so on. So you're talking about people raised in such a way that certain values have been formed, and in those values you set you against the other, and the other is inferior to you. And that is shown in different ways. And so when we say all that Tolstoy says is true, little things happen, they all come together, and then you have a war at the end of it all, that we should be careful how we relate to somebody we don't know, especially someone who is not of the majority community, assuming that every way we speak is understood and all that. There has to be some sensitivity to that factor. I think that would be a great help to peace in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caesar. Any other comments? I'd finish up, but I'd sort of like to say, if you get a chance, listen to the YouTube, if you haven't already, YouTube rendition of the hymn. It's very beautiful, and this is the same guy, Sidney Carter, who wrote the hymn, "The Lord of the Dance."
Yep.
Very, very beautiful hymn.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, Maggie, do you want something?
I was just going to ask, do you want me to try and put it up on the screen, or?
Oh, not now. I don't think. Probably go.
Okay.
I think we need to move on. Is that okay,
Okay.
Craig?
Okay.
Is that okay, Craig?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Craig.
Fine.
That's
Thanks,
good.
Craig.
Some really good discussion there too, and thank you for your presentation this evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we've got Peter, you're taking the notes or the minutes. Peter Griffin, you're taking that, yeah. So I've got apologies here from Jocelyn Shea and also Anne Lanyon and Peter Herborn. Now, each of them had sent a little message, which I have put in the agenda. I think some of you may have got the latest one, but I've added to it again from Peter Herborn and Anne Lanyon. I'll send it to Peter Griffin later on, which you can probably include in the minutes. Okay, so but we've got just the three apologies, Jocelyn, Anne, and Peter Herborn. And welcome, Padre Domingo. We didn't see you earlier. Good to see you. We missed you. Okay, the next thing is on the I think we're supposed to have the minutes of the last meeting. So I did the minutes or took the notes for the last meeting, and I'll move that they be accepted. Does anyone want to question that or add to it or take away from it? Yeah. You didn't read it. Well, I'm moving that we accept the minutes. So anyone want a second who was here at the meeting last?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Any matters arising? I think there's nothing really a lot there that arising which we can deal with in this agenda this evening. I don't have a written report. It's sometimes some months you end up having a lot of meetings and then they get cancelled and so on. But I just want to highlight it. Well, we had the Intercongregational Voice on Climate Change meeting last Thursday week, and then in that month we've also had 2 National Council meetings where we discussed the webinar, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. The webinar is coming up on the 28th of September on Peace on Earth in 2023 and beyond. Caesar might like to add to that later on. The other thing I just want to, if you don't mind, I just want to share with you some thoughts that we had an AGM for the Ecumenical Council on Saturday. This last Saturday was the best part of the day at Redfern at the St. George Antiochian Cathedral, Orthodox Cathedral, and we had Pastor Ray Minicon who gave the talk to us that day, and I just want to highlight a few things that he brought up in that meeting. I thought this was a very generous and very sensitive way in which he presented it, and he started off with the calling of Moses in the burning bush in Exodus, and he sort of said, like, Moses is one of those people who was probably least likely to be chosen. At that time, he was probably starting to use a walking stick. He was a criminal. He had worked for the institution in the Egyptians, amongst the Egyptians, and that sort of which oppressed the Hebrew people, and on and on and on, and also was inadequate and everything else. But Ray then went on to talk about the liberation of the people, and said that the Archbishop of Canterbury had suggested that reconciliation itself is not a good word, that we need different words and language. And the different words that were supplied were be curious, be present, and reimagine. And I think they're probably words that could also apply to us in terms of the voice as we come into the, and so on. He did say that the people, when they left Egypt, they didn't know what's going to happen. They just took the step. And I think that's where the voice comes in as well. We're taking a step here. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're taking it on trust and on hope and on our togetherness and so on. But Ray then talked about the three discourses that as he saw them, that were present: the discourse of the powerful, the discourse of the powerless, and the discourse of God. And the discourse of the powerful means that, something like we own everything. We determine who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come. We design the systems and institutions. We have the knowledge, we have the power and the authority. We write the laws and we determine who benefits from the land, just amongst other things. Then there's the discourse of the powerless. And he talks about, he mentioned things like, powerless would say, I am a slave. My master has the power. I must obey. I will be used for the purposes of the master. I have no identity. I'm socially marginalized. I must not make them uncomfortable. I experience this powerlessness every day, and I've been defined as depraved. I've been defined as non-human. I'm told I'm not capable, and I've told that I have no resources. And these are the sorts of weapons that Steve Biko talked about in South Africa, when he talked about the most powerful weapon of the powerful is the mind of the powerless, who buys that crap that I've just mentioned. And also, Ray Minicon, Pastor Minicon, also talked about people like Samuel Marsden, who, though very much engaged with the Treaty of Waitangi, was able to say that Aboriginal people are the most degraded of all people in the world, and they're not ready for civilization or Christianity. And then he goes on about the discourse of God, and I think this is where we come in as well, that we all have a responsibility and obligation to try to bring those two discourses of the powerful and the powerless together. That God is in that, linked in that, and present in that. God's not just interested in what's happening, but also very much linked in that. So I'm just threw that out. There's a lot of other stuff that he said, but I just thought I'd just share that with you from that meeting, which made a pretty powerful impact on my thinking. Thank you. So that's my report. If anyone wants to make a comment or something, please feel free.
Can I, Claude? I read just recently. I read an article by one of the theologians in the U.S. He was reflecting on what's happening in the U.S. and he spoke of the three idolatries. Of course, I'll be very brief, so you can't say much, but you get the idea. He spoke of the three idolatries at the moment prevailing in America. First, there is the idolatry of power. That those who feel, basically the mainstream society those who feel that they have shaped society should continue shaping it. And that those who are different in whichever way, ethnically, financially, whatever, those who are different, the mainstream, should be kept away and keep the control in the mainstream group, whoever it is, but you can see what's happening on television.
Okay.
Who these people are. The second idolatry is the idolatry of fear. You create a fear that there's going to be a takeover. There's going to be, an evisceration of society, evisceration of traditions and all those things. And we have to protect against that. And the third idolatry is the idolatry of war. You take the first point of power domestically, you apply that internationally, and make sure that invoking God and all of that, we are the righteous and we will communicate what is right to the world. So these three idolatries, according to this writer, who's a well-known theologian, interrelate with one another. And you can see they provide a prism through which we can read what's happening, and that is being extended around the world because America is such a copyable society. So you have your Bolsonaro and you have all these other types who then take on that kind of behavior.
Thanks, Caesar. Thank you. Look, thank you, Rich. Anyone want to comment on my very small, short report? Otherwise, Gary.
Yeah, Claude, well, thanks for your report. Look, people need to know that you do quite amazing things like the weekly liturgy notes, the articles you send out. But like, for instance, that funeral of Adam, the sermon, I gave that to the sisters here today, and I've already had a response. As one sister said, she just can't believe that a priest could actually be so loving in a sermon and talking about the grief, that she learned a lot. So I just think you need to. So I just like to affirm you, and say to others, if you don't receive those things from him, it'd be good trying to get him to send them to you. The actual sermon about at the funeral of that man is incredibly loving and caring. I just think it's quite outstanding. And Sister Angela said the same thing. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I want to acknowledge Craig was there, and Marita, and Phil and Peter Griffin. I don't think anyone else, but anyway, good to see you there too at that funeral for Andy Adam. Yeah.
I'd just like to say another thing. Strangely enough, I have a friend who's an architect. He's done lots of things, and he put up on Facebook yesterday that he was at a wonderful ceremony about some particular tree, and Ray Minicon, it was at Glebe near that St. John's Church, and it was this whole thing. I think I've saved it on my Facebook, so if I can dig it up. And I responded. I didn't want to tell him the story about what you'd mentioned yesterday, that you spoke about tonight at Mass yesterday morning. But I thought, what a coincidence. And I just said in response, he's a wonderful pastor. And he said, yes, he is fantastic. It was all about a scarred tree and the early settlers, and it was this whole ceremony of people in Glebe that are in this thing. So he's a wide-ranging person, that Ray Minicon. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Marita. Yeah. Okay, I'll just move that someone might. Thank you, Gary, for your words too. Move that my report be accepted. Thanks, Gary. Okay. Maggie, your report, Treasurer's report.
There is nothing to report. There's been absolutely no change since the last month. However, there is some requests, and I don't know, should I ask now, Claude? Okay. At the National the National Council, Pax Christi National Council, from time to time we boost their account, which has currently got $58 in it. So Victoria and New South Wales are invited to contribute to our funds, which actually support the website for one, because it's a collective, it's a group. And so I'm asking for a $300 contribution. And the reason why I'm asking for $300 is because there's also an activity that has been commissioned by a person for the Pax Christi Asia Pacific, a template for a new newsletter. So I'm asking the meeting to approve $300 to the National Council Pax Christi account, and I'm also foreshadowing that I will negotiate with Victoria for what we pay for our disarming times. Usually it's about 660. I noticed when on the report that we haven't paid it for this year, so we are due to pay it.
Okay.
And I will continue. So I'm assuming that they're going to ask for the same amount, but can I ask the meeting that be approved as well?
So Maggie, you're moving that we make this payment to National Council.
Two payments, one to National Council and the other to Victoria.
Thank you. Okay. Any objections? I think it's fair enough. Thank you, Maggie. Anyone want to second that? Just to second it as a Domingo. Thank you. Domingo. Thank you. Thank you. The next, we'll just also move that we accept. Maggie, you want to move that you accept your report too?
Yes, I'm moving the Treasurer's report, even though it's completely the same as last month.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Frank. Frank. Okay. All right, Marita. Do you want No, nothing.
I haven't got anything because I've been out of action for the last month.
Oh, really? Okay.
Doing my sister's estate.
I know. Yeah, I know. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Look, the next thing on the agenda is the National Council. We've had 2 meetings. We're having another one on Wednesday night.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Maggie, I think Maggie made a mistake when she put Thursday, but we decided on Wednesday. If it's Thursday, I can't be there. But anyway, but Thursday.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I said Wednesday when I sent out the minutes.
Yeah, but I when I sent you that email, I queried that you said Thursday on the thing. But anyway, it's Wednesday at 6:30. We're having the third meeting in recent times about the webinar that we're going to have at the end of this month to in some way commemorate and take forward the spirit and the thoughts of Pope John the 23rd's Pacem in Terris. So the webinar will be called something like Peace on Earth in 2023 and beyond. And well, maybe we can. I put that down as any other reports, but maybe we can talk about that now as the relevance for the National Council, because that's what we've been talking about most of the time. So and Caesar has you've got Caesar's paper that he's written, which will be a background paper for the speakers. So I'd encourage you to look at that and read it. I don't think we need to go through it tonight, but the thing is, I encourage you to read it, and it'll be something that's be given to the speakers. We've got, as far as I know, 2 of the speakers locked in. One is Sister Susan Connolly, and the other one is, and I asked her, and she said immediately, she said, yes, love to. And then there's Father Glenn Lochry, who's an Anglican priest, also Indigenous, from Melbourne, who will also speak. Susan, do you know if there is a third speaker yet?
David Tutty is already there.
Sorry, David Tutty, yes. Dave. Yeah, sorry, yes. So we've got the speakers. So it's so we just keep that in mind. Anything else further, Caesar, do you want to say at the present moment about that?
Just very briefly, I've shared that paper around the world from my networks and so on, and I've got good feedback. It's very clear that, I mean, the encyclical, the Pacem in Terris was written in 1963, many years ago, and it could not have referred to what's happening today. But the guts of it are relevant, and it says that we cannot have peace without truth, justice, charity, and freedom, and that applies today. But within our discussion, and this is what I would bring to your attention, there was a tendency from 1 or 2 people to poo-poo or belittle that encyclical because it was written so far back. And we had quite a lot of tussle over that. And I'm surprised we have got to where we are. When you join the webinar, I hope you will read my paper, but when you join the webinar, keep an eye for that kind of, putting down of the encyclical that might arise. It is still a valuable landmark document.
Yeah, thank you, Caesar. Look, I think so too. If that going to poo-poo parliamentarians, we need to poo-poo the Gospels as well. They're not talking about a lot of the stuff that's happened. You know, they speak to it. The Spirit speaks to it. You know, not that they actually address every issue. But anyway, thank you, Caesar. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it'll be, you know, and as soon as we get the flyer ready, I'm going to start sending it out to people, and so that's important. So that's the National Council, as far as I think that's the most important and crucial thing at the moment, that we get this webinar going and make it a success as much as we can in promoting the spirit of Parliamentaris for our times.
Can I say something, Claude?
Yes.
Just to add, just be aware very shortly there will be a need for sharing the information about the Parliamentaris in your networks. So just be alert, because this is totally reliant on us getting the word out. It's not very far away, but that sometimes is an advantage. So I'm just saying, on Wednesday, I believe that the flyer will be finalised, and so beyond that, we'll be moving ahead.
Yeah, I'll be sending it out then at that. Thank you, Maggie. Caesar? Yeah.
If any of you have access to parish bulletins or church magazines in Rome or even statewide, and if you have connections there, I'll be happy to write a very toned down little something on Parliamentaris for those bulletins or parish newsletters or whatever.
Why not do it anyway?
I can do it, but I need to
send it round, and we can use it as and where we can.
Yeah.
If I had a sense of who am I sending to, it would be helpful. If you have, yeah.
Thank you.
Redfern Parish. Redfern, City South Parish, Sydney City South Parish.
Frank, I can't say that again.
He wants to know who his audience might be, and it's possible to get it into the Sydney City South.
Okay, the paper. Okay.
That's all.
That's the paper, Sydney South. The church paper.
Yes, Uniting Church. Uniting Church.
No,
yes.
Church Bulletin and Uniting Church there too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It could also go to religious orders.
Yes, CRA, hopefully, and all that. And I've already asked Sister Susan Connolly whether she put it through her networks with the Australian Catholic Social Justice Council. And I'll ask Peter Arndt from the Catholic Bishops, he's a justice person for the Catholic Bishops in Canberra, who might also be able to promote it in some ways. So as soon as we get it, I'll send these things out through my networks as well. We've got, just while we're on the National Council, is there any other business at the moment? Frank, you had something you wanted to talk about, the AUKUS rally.
Oh, yes. They're going to have a meeting on the 15th. It's an AUKUS rally at the town hall.
Yeah.
And, but besides that, I was trying to get into their literature about the treaty for the prevention of nuclear weapons, because I think that's a first step that Australia can make to reassure the world and China that they are serious about not being even-handed in their dealings with people, the big superpowers, and also and be non-nuclear.
Yep. Okay.
There's no other sign yet that they are committed to it, really.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Frank. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else want to, Domingo or Boyan, anyone else want to share anything from the Filipino world? Don't have to, but yeah. No? Okay, well, we'll have the media and communications now. For Maggie, you've got a few things you might want to say on that. Thank you. Yeah.
only that I've just had an offer from a previous
Yeah.
website.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Domingo, can you just wait now? We'll get you back in a minute. We'll get you. Maggie's just giving her report now. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. Maggie. Maggie?
Just to say that, I'm working on, I've got an offer from someone, John Atkins, who helped us with the website initially. And so there may be, we may be able to improve it, but it won't be happening for a couple of months, I don't think.
Yeah.
But like I have, like today I tried to put up the Palestinian information, and guess what? It just the website shut down, or it wasn't available. Now, whether that's because it's Palestine, I don't know. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but sometimes I wonder whether some of this information is kind of blocked. But there is a limit as to how much, and it's something that I will communicate. There is only so much whatever. How can I say it? The information that you provide has to be within a certain parameter for it to go on the website, and I will keep you posted about that, because the actual flyer for Bob Carr was way over, and so I couldn't even put the flyer on. Facebook is able to manage that for some reason, but not the website is very limited. Okay, so I'll just say that I'm just continuing. That's all. Just trying to do.
Maggie's talking about this tomorrow, the Palestinian catastrophe at the Sydney University, which I'll be attending. Some other people might want to. You needed to really register. It's free, but Bob Carr will be speaking at because of the numbers of people, and the university saw the importance of this event, that they've given us the great hall to use, so which is great. So anyway, but that's tomorrow, and Thursday I'll be also attending at the Pitt Street Uniting Church, the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change. We have I think we've got Tanya Plibersek present, and we'll be badgering her about coal and all those sorts of mining things as well. So that's on Thursday 6 o'clock at Pitt Street Uniting Church. But thanks, Maggie. Thank you for your report. Sorry, Domingo. You want to go? Yeah.
No problem. It was just was standing by for the updates from the Filipino community as you raised. Yes. Yeah, we are remembering martial law again on the 21st of September. And what worries us really is the escalating of a lot of human rights violations happening in the Philippines. And they have this anti-terror law, which is now being waged against activists, that is active nonviolence stance, and also the missionaries who are doing their missions in the far-flung areas, the hinterlands of the Philippines. They are affected as well. So yes, we have on the 10th of September a forum. We will invite the International Coalition on Human Rights in the Philippines to talk about the update of the human rights in the Philippines, so people may know. And on the 16th, we are planning to have a mobilization there in Blacktown, at least to let people know that it's like a de facto martial law that is happening in the Philippines. What worries us is that they invited also the Catholic Bishops' Conference to sit down into the National Task Force to End Local Communism in the Philippines, the NTF-LCAC. But we know that that's just the government arm to quell the voices of those who are resisting, especially people who are there at the forefront of raising to the governments what are worrying the people. Well, these are not armed people. These are not the people that have that are the new people's army now. These are religious people and pastors, but they are now being vilified and that. So what worries us is that the Catholic Bishops' Conference is also accepting the post of having a representation in that task force, they call it. I don't know what will happen then, because if that's the case, they are also supporting the act of the government terrorism. That's what worries us at the moment, how to get into the CBCP that this can be wrong. Because they are also ruining those people who are just being red tagged and that. Okay, so that's now at the moment what we are working at as per the campaigns. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Domingo. That's the toxicity of society and church coming together, and supporting one another and to continue to oppress people. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
anyway, look, before I finish, I did. I said that I put some little notes in the agenda, which I'll send to Peter to put in the minutes. But I just want to say thank you to all of you for what you do, because I don't always know what you're doing. And some people, when they send their apologies, they actually say what they've been up to. And Jocelyn has been having these little. I'm just trying to find her little one. God, here we go. It's on the agenda. Oh, here we are. Turn the page over. That's what it is. Jocelyn sends her apologies for today, and she said, "I've just got visitors. They'll keep her occupied." And then part of the agenda for the discussion this evening is relevant to our peace efforts, and I'll keep you and the group informed as plans develop. I think there's something to do also with the voice. Then she's been in an electorate. In her electorate, she's been supporting the yes vote, including the interviews for SBS Mandarin Chinese radio. So she believes this referendum is extremely important, and I'm sure that Pax Christi members feel the same and hope we can change the tide of negativity that is being promoted by the no people. So that's a message from Jocelyn. Then we had a message from Peter Herborn. What I'm saying is everyone's doing something, and he sent an email to his local member, Susan Templeton, from Macquarie in support of the IPAN request for an independent and public assessment of the risks of AUKUS. And he's also working on the Yes campaign in his area. And then Anne Lanyon also said her apologies. She's hosting a kitchen table conversation in her street for the next 5 weeks. And she's been travelling and gathering with Indigenous elders and so on in the Maclean on the Clarence River. So what I'm just basically saying is that I'm glad they're sending a little bit of a note as to why their apologies are there. They're important for us to know. And I know Craig, and I know Marita, and I know Boyan and Caesar, and we're all, Maggie and Peter Griffin and so on. We're all, I haven't mentioned everybody's name, but I was just saying, I know you're all out there, and that's what's important. And these are the little things. These are the little things, as Craig pointed out in his reflection, that grow peace. Okay.
Thank you. Lord, can I just, because it was not in the agenda, perhaps it was oversight, a very brief report on PCI?
Well, yeah, okay. Well, no, it didn't come forward. Okay, yeah, okay, if you want to, okay.
So very briefly, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative is involved in many directions, including putting pressure on the Vatican in terms of a possible encyclical on nonviolence. But what we know, what we have heard, and what you might have heard is that the Pope is now keen on doing an update on Laudato Si, and that might come anytime soon. So that might be another, few insights. The office of the PCI is still settling down, the new staff all over, including the new general secretary. So I think they're still finding their feet, finding their way. And the hope we had of getting a higher focus on Asia Pacific is still up there, need to be worked on. There's also a statements committee that they have formed of 3, and they have put me on that committee as well. So so that's it. Very basic. Basically, that's it. Just to connect you with the wider world.
Thank you, Caesar. That's great.
So can I put in something, please?
Thank you, Caesar. And we're looking forward to that second version of Laudate Si. Peter.
With regard to the webinars season of Raising Peace, there are 4 days from the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. There are webinars from various sectors in the social justice. I've actually been so focused on preparing the 2 that I'm working on that I haven't actually prepared to give a comprehensive overall report. But I will actually send out some stuff as soon as it becomes available. I noticed that the Eventbrite registration page has just come up online, so I'll send that out to people. The 2 that I'm working on, there's one on the Thursday night, is a presentation of the Yes 23 campaign. I've got a spot appearance by one no less than Danny Gilbert, and I've got a guy from Victoria doing an acknowledgement of country, Dr. Uncle Shane Charles. So that should be interesting. And on the Saturday, we've also got Glenn Lockley doing an unpacking of the Statement of the Heart, which he wrote himself, and he's a bit countercultural in some ways in some of his opinions, and it's quite interesting. His in-depth assessment leads him to I think rather unusual but very very profound conclusions. Okay, I'll let that go.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, thank you. If there's no one else got anything, I did ask people to let me know earlier, but anyway, but if there's anything else you want to share now, otherwise we'll go to the next meeting's on October the 2nd, and we need a chair and a reflector and someone to do the minutes. So if you've got anyone volunteer to do the chair? Yeah.
I'll do that if you like.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, and thanks for the reflection today, the acknowledgement. So someone do the reflection for the next meeting?
I'll do that.
Marita, thank you. And the minutes, anyone offering to do the minutes? Thanks, Frank. Thank you. Thank you. So Peter, I will send you the agenda that I had here with those extra little notes that you might like to include, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your presence. Craig, are you okay? Have you sorry, I'm bringing up a personal thing, but your health, are you okay?
Doing well now. Thanks, everyone. No, just sort of was had to go through a little bit of surgery a couple of weeks back, but I'm feeling recovering well.
Okay, thank you. It's good to see you at the funeral too on last Monday. So anyway, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good night, and hopefully we bump into each other before the next meeting. If not, okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.